So we were joined by my friend Bridget Townsend from right here in Jackson, Mississippi. So much background, got a resume I'll put up against anybody, consultant, HR professional, graduate of Mississippi College. So I will let her take it away.
Great. Well, thank you for having me. So I'm here today to talk about how to prepare for your first big job. So let's go ahead and get started here. Okay, so he gave me that wonderful intro, so I won't spend a whole lot of time talking about my bio here. But as you can see, I have done a lot of things. I'm a native of Jackson. I have graduated from Merle, like he said, a bachelor's degree from Mississippi College, got my master's from Troy State. I'll scoot on down here to the bottom. A lot of times people like to toot their horn on boards and stuff that they serve. But the one I'm most proud of is the Boys and Girls Club of Mississippi. I've been on that board for probably over 10 years now.
Wow.
I think a little bit of my bio got cut off here, but I am the proud mom. Oh, here it is. Of a son, Brian. He's a second generation Merrill graduate, also a graduate of Jackson State University. I have a daughter, Chase, who is a graduate of St. Andrew's Episcopal School, and she is enjoying her. It says freshman. I thought I updated that, but she's in her sophomore year now at Holmes Community College, hoping to transfer to LSU or USM. So that's
Awesome.
just a little bit about me. Okay, so qualities that make a good candidate. You want to look for strong communication skills, have a passion for company values, aligning with what the company does. You know, do their values meet your values? It's a two-way street, so you want to be able to have both and be team oriented. A positive attitude, be adaptable. That's probably the biggest thing in today's market is be able to adjust and to change in any circumstances. That's going to be very critical. Be proactive. Initiative and taking charge can set candidates apart from there. So let's go on here. The importance of cover letters. You want to personalize them, tailor each cover letter to a specific job and company that you're applying for. Highlight your skills, focus on your skills and experiences that are most relevant to the job description. Don't just kind of send out blanket cover letters. A lot as a recruiter, I've seen a lot of people do that in the field. So you don't want to do that. Even if you just edit it just a little bit, you want to make sure that you're at least putting the job title in there, the organization's name. So don't just send a blanket cover letter. I know it takes a little time, especially when you're applying for a lot of jobs, but take the time to make the cover letter specific to the job that you're applying for.
Yeah, and on the cover letter, and just stop. I'm sorry, just stop you real quick. On the cover letter, you talk about personalized. I think it's important and also proofread carefully because a lot of these companies are going to have thousands of jobs posted. You've got to put the correct job number on there because even if you're the most qualified person, if it goes to the wrong person, they're not going to send it to the correct person. So that could put you in the no pile before anybody even takes a look at it.
That's very true. And also, as a recruiter, a lot of times we use recruitment software that weed out a lot of applicants because we can't look at them all. So if you can't get through the application software system, you'll never make it to my desk. And that a lot of times involves putting the job title, the requisition number, things of that sort in the cover letter so that, it flags it and gets to me.
Absolutely.
Proofreading is the other big deal. Proofread. I can't say that enough. I was very rushing and putting this presentation together, so I may have a couple typos in here myself, but you do want to make sure that you are proofreading, get somebody else to proofread it so that you can minimize your errors. Key elements of a winning resume. Resume showcase your qualifications and achievements in a very concise and organized format. They are first impression you make on a potential employer. So you want to make sure that your contact information is accurate. Your name, your phone number, email address, LinkedIn profile, summary of objectives, a brief overview of your skills and experiences and career goals. I tell people don't spend a whole lot of time on this, but you do want to make it very precise and to the point. And then listing your work experience your previous jobs, including responsibilities and achievements. As a recruiter, I tell a lot of people that I mentor, your cover letter, don't make it too lengthy. Don't try to tell your whole life story in the cover letter. If I'm reviewing thousands of resumes, I'm going to spend 1 to 2 minutes glancing over your resume. And if nothing catches my attention, it's just, I'm going to move on to the next one. So you got to find that one couple of things or sentences that will stand out to me to make me want to dig deeper into your resume and the rest of your information. Because if you lose me on the first page, I may not even get to your resume.
Yep.
Okay, so these are just a couple of examples of some functional type resumes. Nowadays, in this generation, they're adding pictures to resumes. I have my pros and cons with that. It won't hurt. I don't always recommend it. Especially if you're just going to do some type of Instagram picture, or if you don't have a professional headshot to add to the resume, I probably wouldn't do it because it can automatically kind of weed you out. But it is becoming more of a thing. Your social media platforms down here at the bottom, that's becoming more. But if your social media is not business friendly, don't add it. Because if I'm going to go to your page and I'm going to see you and your friends partying and having fun in high school, probably don't want to add that there. So that's, if you were to add it, this would be a very functional one. She kept it simple. It's a very small picture and basically highlighting the rest of, but millennials in this new generation, this may be a format that you're looking into, but I'm more of a traditionalist, so I would veer more toward this. It has all the pertinent. It's still, it's jazzy enough to the social media links, handles are here, but they, it's very basic. It gives the basic information. Her name stands out. This would stand out to me just because it looks a little bit different than a lot of resumes that I may see, just because she has this contact and social and clarification over here on the side. So, this example would be a very functional example that you could use. There may be some instances where you want this, like if you are into branding, or if you're a marketing specialist or a media specialist, then you may want to jazz yours up to look more like this, because they may expect more of this from you. But if you're looking for a business job, an executive assistant job, that type of thing, I would recommend being on the side of this type of resume.
Absolutely.
Okay, so dressing for success. This is another important thing. When people are coming in for interviews, you want to make sure that the first impressions matter. You're only going to get one chance to impress me in your interview. So when you come in, that's your chance to show me what you would be like as an employee. So choose your attire appropriately. You want to be clean and crisp. Ensure your clothing is clean and wrinkle-free and well-maintained. Professional and appropriate. Choose attire that reflects your professionalism and respect for the interview process. Be comfortable and confident. Don't wear shoes that you've worn for the first time and are going to make you feel uncomfortable. Wear things that are going to make you feel your best. And I say that jokingly, but when you feel your best, you interview better. So if you go in there kind of, you've never worn a suit before and you're feeling all stuffy and out of place, that's going to come through in your interview. So, if you have to wear a suit for an interview and you've never worn one before, practice wearing it a couple of times before you actually get to the interview, so that you feel more comfortable in it, because when you feel your best, you present your best. A little bit more about that. These are just examples, male and female, on professional dress. Dressing professional with tailored suits, button-down shirts. For females, your tailored dresses, blouses, skirts, closed-toe shoes. A lot of companies are doing away with this though and going more to a business casual. But in business casual, you still want to have your khakis, your polo shirts, loafers, and professional relaxed look for your guys. Your females are going to have slacks, blouses, flats for stylish and comfortable attire. So this is becoming more of the norm. So preparing for the interview, in preparation.
It's a big one for me.
Yeah, preparation is key to a successful interview. Do some research on the company, the role that you're going to be interviewing for. Don't just show up on the day of the interview and know nothing about the company. Even if, sometimes I know you get interviews very last minute. Somebody may call you today and say, hey, can you interview tomorrow? And your schedule's packed. You may not have a lot of time to do a lot of in-depth resume, but at least take a look at the website, kind of glance at their mission and their values. Take at least 5 to 10 minutes. I like to say at least 30, but if you don't have 30, spend what you have. Looking at the website, who's working there, who are the leaders, if they have a board of directors. Sometimes you may find that you may know somebody on the board that you can reference. You may know somebody that works at the company that has a key position that you can leverage. So spend a little time researching the company if you can. Plan your answers. Think about your skills and your experience and how they relate to the job description, and be able to articulate that in your interview. Talk about and highlight those skills in reference to what they're looking for. So know your job description. I was going to put a slide in here about that, but that's very important. Know the job description, know what they're looking for, know what the requirements are. Some job descriptions are very vague and you may not have a lot to go on, but if they have taken the time to put a very detailed job description together, that's probably important. So spend some time looking at that. Practice some of your common questions. Tell me about yourself. What are you interested in? Tell me your short-term goals, your long-term goals. Because depending on who your interviewer is, and I will say this, not all interviewers are versed in interviewing. I'll say that. So you may get some managers who don't have a lot of experience interviewing. And so they may ask you some of the very old questions that, and if you meet with an HR person, they may be a little bit more skilled at their interviewing. So they may use particular interview styles to interview you. So do a little research on interview styles so that you can kind of be prepared either way. Ask questions. Whenever somebody calls me for an interview, I always ask them, is this just going to be with the hiring manager? Would this be a panel interview? What does this interview look like? Because you want to know that. I prepare differently when I'm just talking to somebody one-on-one versus if I'm talking to a whole panel of people. And so you want to be prepared for that. If they tell me it's going to be a panel interview, I ask how many. Can I be prepared for 3 people, or will it be 5 or 6 people? Because that's going to determine how I work the room when I'm there. So ask those questions. Don't be afraid to ask. A lot of times the front end person that you're talking to is just either a recruiter or an HR manager. They're not the actual manager that you're going to be interviewing with for the job. So that's a good place to ask them questions. Now, on the rare occasion where you do have a manager calling you directly to set up an interview for themselves, you want to be a little bit more cautious with your questions, but still, ask questions. Ask them if they will be having somebody join them in the interview. How long might the interview take so that you can plan accordingly. If you're taking off work, you want to make sure you have time so that you don't feel rushed. So don't be afraid to ask questions. Answering the tough interview questions. Be prepared for challenging questions that develop deeper thought. Sometimes you may give an answer to a question and they may say, tell me more about that. Or can you elaborate about that? So be prepared to be able to dig a little deeper in some of your answers. In doing that, you want to listen carefully, listen very attentively to the question and make sure that you understand it before you respond. Don't be afraid to ask them to repeat it. If it's a long question, say, hey, can you repeat that question? And when you get ready to answer it, say, hey, I may answer this in 2 parts. Don't be afraid to take notes when they're asking you questions. If it's a difficult question, ask them to repeat it and jot it down so that as you're answering, you can refer back to it to make sure that you have actually answered the question. Think before you answer. Don't be afraid to take a few minutes to gather your thoughts. Sometimes, they may ask you a question, and in thinking, you can say something like, oh, that's an interesting question. I hadn't thought a lot about that, but let me see, those type of statements give you time to actually get your answer together. Provide specific examples, as much as you can to your experience. And if you don't have the experience, say, well, I don't have an experience, personal experience that I can share related to that, but this is what I would anticipate doing. So if you don't have the experience, let them know what you feel like you could do in that situation. Be honest and authentic. Don't make up stuff. Don't say, oh, I was, the best person at this job and I created 5 million, jobs. Don't inflate numbers, that way. It's fine to round up numbers. If you increase sales by 75, percent, you can say 80%, but don't inflate numbers in a way that's just ridiculous, because sometimes they have a way of coming back to bite you. Stay positive and enthusiastic, even if you're nervous, even if you feel like the examples you're giving are not what they're looking for, still stay optimistic, stay positive. What I have learned as a recruiter and as interviewing myself, don't always interpret their faces as a negative. So sometimes you might be looking at the people who are interviewing you and you may feel like, oh, they are not liking my answers. Don't interpret it that way, because that will start to play in your psyche and it'll come across in your interview. So stay positive, just say, oh, I wonder if they're having a bad day, but it doesn't affect you. Don't take it personal. So whatever facial expressions they give you, I try to, be aware of that when I'm interviewing people, because I know how that makes people feel, but not all people do that. So if you're not getting smiles or, warm gestures to make you feel like that you're doing a good job, don't be discouraged. Stay optimistic in the interview. Let's see. Okay, following up after your interview. This is important. This is an old skill set that I feel like has kind of gone by the wayside, but I think a lot of times it sets me apart. Follow up, when you go to that interview, and a lot of times you can find this information online now, but and I try to make sure that I can find it before I go, so I know if I need to ask for it. But whoever you're interviewing with, ask them for a card. If they don't have a card, say, hey, would you mind sharing your email address with me so I can follow up with you at a later time? And send them a brief email. Like I said, customize your emails too when you send them. Don't make them long, very short and to the point. Hey, I enjoyed our conversation today. Thank you for the opportunity. I look forward to hearing from you soon. If they mention something during the interview, like they may have said, oh yeah, we got this conference in Dallas coming up, mention that. That lets them know you were paying attention. Hey, thank you for the conversation. I hope y'all have a great trip to Dallas during your conference. I look forward to hearing from you when you get back. So that just lets them know that you was engaged enough to pay attention to the information that they was telling you. Sometimes a handwritten note would be great. That's not always possible in this day and age, but if you are in a position where you can create a handwritten note and drop it by to the secretary or the front desk person and say, hey, I want to leave this for Mr. whoever you have the interview with. That's always a plus. In some cases, a phone call. I will say a lot of managers now don't necessarily like phone calls, but even if you can get a phone call and go to their voicemail and can leave a message, that would be great. Hey, this is Bridget. I had an interview with you last week. I just wanted to say thank you for the opportunity and I look forward to hearing from you soon. Okay. And leave that message and always leave your phone number. But email I find works great. But if you're in positions where you can personalize or, some of these other areas, that's great too. So in closing, the job offer is what we ultimately want. So putting it all together so that you can secure the job offer. And, that's, like I said, your resume showcasing your skills and experience, your cover letter, express enthusiasm and highlight relevant skills. In the interview, be prepared and answer thoughtfully, precisely, and follow up, express gratitude and reiterate your qualifications for the job. I will say, going back to interview real quickly, don't talk yourself out of the job. I've had people do this a number of times. Answer the question and let that be it. Don't go on and on and on telling about personal experiences and things that are not relevant to the job, because sometimes less is more. Sometimes you can say too much and you will talk yourself out of the job. Don't be negative about any job experience you've had, even if you hated the job. Don't go in an interview expressing that. I've had people that I've interviewed and I'm like, oh, tell me about your time at such and such company, and they go, well, that company was just, I hated working there. Don't do that, because what they're going to feel like is you're going to go out and do the same thing to them. So, if you've had bad experiences, keep them to a minimum. Don't lie, but be very vague in your answers. If you come from a situation that was bad and that you didn't like, keep that to a minimum. They don't have to know that, you hated working next to the person that you worked for the last 10 years and you quit the job because you just didn't like her. You don't have to tell all of that. That you just decided to move on. You can, and if they keep pressing, because sometimes they will, you can say, well, it was a difficult situation there, but I felt like it was just time for me to move on, and I wish them the best. That just shows that, okay, yeah, it may have been a difficult situation, but you're not gonna, dog the company and dog the employees out. You just decided to move on, and that was what was best. So that's the best advice I can give in interviewing is don't talk yourself out of the job. Cite your answer. If they want more, they'll ask more. Don't volunteer more, because sometimes you can volunteer too much. So
Absolutely.
That's it. Do you have any questions for me? I thought I might
I
be
do. I
talking.
had a few things I wanted to talk about. I'm trying to see how to, this is a new Zoom interface. I'm trying to see how to stop your screen sharing.
Oh, I think I have to stop it here. Let's see.
Okay, cool. But yeah, and that was great. And my thing is, even though this is a personal finance class, as a district, we're really focusing on career development because the kids say they want to make all this money, but they got to get the job first. Now, a few things you mentioned I think are very important, and I'm glad it's coming from an HR professional saying it, because I say this stuff all the time. And a couple of these, if I hadn't seen it, I wouldn't have believed it. I literally had a woman come in for an interview one time, and it wasn't my position, but I was like, she said, I'm here for the interview. I said, oh, cool. That's great. Who are you here to see? She literally looked at me in the face and said, I don't know. Let me go out to my car and check. So immediately she's in the no pile. And you mentioned about being negative. You're right. You can find ways to say, look, it wasn't a good fit. I needed a better experience. I saw a guy that was the most qualified person for a job talk himself out of one because he just talked about everybody at his previous job was a bunch of idiots. And and I hated it for him, but people don't want that type of energy in their office. And another thing you said, I think is so great. You had it on the bullet point about always ask questions. They always say when you go into an interview and they ask if you have questions, the answer 0% of the time is no. Have something ready, because people want to see people that look prepared. They want to see people that take initiative, and not knowing things makes you look very, very silly.
And just to follow up on that, asking questions. Now, sometimes, rarely, I've been in an interview so long and so in depth that I really don't have questions because we've covered everything. But a lot of times that's not the case. So a lot of good questions to ask. I tell my young people who are just starting out, what would the next phase look like in the interview process? Because sometimes a lot of people are going to multiple interviews now. You may have a second or third interview. So ask what the next steps are. How soon are you looking to fill this position is a good one. They may be interviewing, but they may not be wanting to hire for 6 months, or they may not, they may say, oh, we need somebody next week. So that kind of sets your expectations, and don't say, if they say, well, oh, we're looking, but we probably won't hire for another 6 months. Don't be like, well, I need a job now. Keep that to yourself. But that just does expect you, set your expectations of when they might be looking to hire. If it's a job that you're really, really interested in, ask them what the training might look like for the position. Will there be a training period for this position? And what might that look like? Say, if I was hired in this position, what would be my expectation? What would be your expectation of me in the first 90 days? So you can start thinking about those things before you even actually get the job. So those are just a couple of questions that you can go in asking. I have people ask me all the time, well, I don't know what to ask. Those are some of your basic things that you could ask about the job. What are the next steps, for this position? How soon are you looking to fill the position? And what might your expectations be of this role in the first 90 days?
Yeah, and one that I always asked was, what type of qualities are you looking for in a candidate? Because a lot of times they're asking you questions, they're really not going to cover that. So I think that puts them in the position. Okay, this man, this person's really interested. So that's one that I always had, and that I always suggest for people to ask as well.
And when you do ask that, take notes, because then in your closing statement, you can say, hey, you mentioned that you're looking for somebody that's ambitious or somebody who is a team player, and you can go back to your skill set and kind of sell them on why you fit those qualifications.
Absolutely. Well, I do have a few questions. And these are really good. This first one is Levon Johnson. He's in 10th grade, and he asked, "What is the hardest interview question that I should prepare for?"
And that really depends on the position. Um, what I find trips most people up though is they'll ask you to tell them your strengths and then tell them your weaknesses. Whenever you tell your strengths, that's usually, and I've had people have problems even telling their strengths. So you want to know what you're good at. So, be able to talk to that, and, they're simple, well, I'm very ambitious, I'm a go-getter, I'm a great communicator. So those are strengths, a lot of times when people say, what are your weaknesses? They have trouble with that. And I say, don't give a weakness that is a critical point of the job. If you're interviewing for an accounting position, you don't want to say, my weakness is I'm bad at math. That's not that's not a good weakness to have if you're interviewing to be an accountant. But sometimes I always use technology because that's something that's ever changing. And I always say, well, hey, while I'm great at technology, I would probably say my weakness is keeping up, because once I'm found that I've mastered one thing, something's always changing. And many people can relate to that because they have that same problem. So that's a weakness that I usually use. It's not really a weakness, but you can give it as a weakness. But that's probably the most difficult one I find that trips people up.
Absolutely. And I agree 100% on that answer. This is Edward Flowers. He's also in 10th grade, member of our band here. And he asked, "What is the most important parts of a cover letter and resume that you see when you see an application? And should I point those things out in the interview?"
The most important thing in the cover letter, like I said, is to highlight your enthusiasm for the position. Hey, I saw this position, or someone told me about this position as a administrative assistant. I'm very excited about that. I feel like I have great skill sets. So hearing that you're very passionate about the job stands out to me before I even get to your resume. So, and if you don't provide a cover letter, because not all jobs require a cover letter, then you want to put it in your objective statement, sort of highlighting it there, because I'm going to kind of glance at your resume, and formatting is important. So make sure you have a format of your resume that's going to stand out to me. Because
Absolutely.
all
I've
that, before I even get to reading it, that's going to be key first. Because if it's formatted weirdly, or if it looks weird, I'm gonna just kind of chunk it, to be honest. I'm not gonna even go into depth of the resume. So formatting is important. Your objective statement is important if you don't provide a cover letter. And if you do provide a cover letter, your enthusiasm coming across in the cover letter is important.
Absolutely. Well, I've got one more. This is Shania Smith. She's in 10th grade, one of our volleyball players here. And she asked, "What do you enjoy most about your career?"
Um, Probably the diversity of it. I get to meet a lot of different people, especially when I'm working in HR. I get to do things like this where I'm talking to students and engaging with students. I like working with young people. But I also have found that a lot of times when I'm doing recruiting events, older people, I have a lot of people over 40 who are like changing careers, or they're looking for direction, and to be able to give them some guidance is just as exciting as helping my young people. So being able to be a mentor to people of all facets of life, and just being able to meet new people and make an impact, great or small.
Absolutely. Well, we're almost out of time, and we thank you so much for taking some time for us. But before we go, I just really want to hit on one key point, and that is, these kids may think this stuff doesn't apply to them, this stuff isn't important. But if you want to take that next step of making that money that you dream about and you see on TV, these are the skills that employers are looking for before you ever start the job. They want people who can talk, they want people who can write, and they want people that are professional. So no matter I always tell them, look, and I've told kids this before, I'll find them by accident on social media doing something stupid. And I'm like, you're applying for a job. People are going to find this. If everything you put on there is political, no matter what side you're on, People really don't want that attitude in the office. If you're putting stuff on there with a bunch of drugs and money and guns and stuff, they're not going to hire you because all that stuff is going to be a red flag to a recruiter. So even though they may think, look, I'm just 15, 16 years old, this stuff is stupid. These are skills that you have to master now. So tell us why these kids need to really take these types of skills seriously in high school.
And I would say, yeah, I can do a whole PowerPoint on just social media etiquette alone, but that is very important because you may not even think that, because even if you don't put it on your resume, they're still going to search you, for certain positions. Now, your entry level positions, they may not, do that, but if you're looking for positions that's over a certain salary mark, they may do that. They may be, Google you and see what's coming up on social media. So do be very cautious about those things. But I will say it's most important because you want to start thinking about this in high school, to start thinking about the type of experience you need, the type of coursework you may need. And I'm not saying that you have to be, you can't change your mind, because we all change our mind 1,000 times with majors in college and what we want to be when we grow up. Sometimes I still say I'm trying to figure out what I want to be when I grow up. But just be able to start thinking, if you want to be an accountant, or, you're going to have to take certain math. Math is going to have to be a heavy lift for you. If you want to be a doctor, science is going to have to be a heavy lift for you. You want to be an executive or be in an administrative field, business courses and things like that are going to be a heavy lift for you. So start thinking about things that you think you might want to do and start exploring and look into them. I didn't necessarily like math when I was in high school, so I knew that wasn't something I wanted to do. So I looked for majors. I was good at communication and English, so I looked for majors that fit that skill set. So start doing a lot of, and I know they do these and we don't take them serious when we're in high school, when they do personality profiles and, tests like that to show you what you may be good at, but take those seriously. Answer those profiles seriously to see what reflects your personality, what skill sets you have, so that you can start thinking about those things as you go through high school and into college. So that's why it's really important, because you want to know what path you need to take. Or if you're deciding that, well, you know what, I'm tired of school, I'm just ready to get out of high school and try to make some money, start looking at blue collar work jobs. Like I know right now, welding is very popular. They're searching for welders and they're paying a lot of good money. So if you know that college may not be your thing, start researching what those alternative pathways may look like for you.
Absolutely. Man, you're saying all the things we say. It's great to hear it from a great local professional. But again, we thank you so much for joining us. Bridget Townsend, right here in Jackson, Mississippi. Thank you so much for taking some time.
Thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it.
I talk to you soon, buddy.
All right. Bye-bye.